Welcome again to educator.com, and continuing with reading comprehension, we are going to explore Latin root words. So the plan for this lesson is pretty simple. I'm actually going to give you examples of words you already know that have Latin roots in them. And then I'm going to give you examples of prefixes and root words, and I'll explain what each one of those means. And finally, we're going to see some examples of some actual Latin words and how they've actually turned into English words over the centuries. And after that, we'll do some sample exercises. So let's think back to the previous lesson real quick. Let's recap. We had these strange words like ontology, geology, and biology, and we came up with logy. Well, logy is the root word, and that meant something like study of, or learning of, or knowledge of. And then once we figure out what bio, geo, and onto is, we could figure out what these words mean. Latin roots work the same way. I have a prefix, which comes before the root word sub, and then I have this word right here, mar. There it is, the word submarine. Where do submarines travel? Beneath the water. Now, why do we do these Latin roots? Why do we go through them? Well, first off, it'll make it a lot easier to understand big words. And I can't emphasize this enough. I mean, would you rather memorize 24 root words or 300 new vocabulary words? This is going to make things a lot simpler for you. This word right here, malefactor, there are actually two words there. And by the end of this lesson, you are going to understand exactly what that means without me even having to tell you. Also, when you're doing those exams for those tests, you get into college, you get into schools, it's going to make that guessing process. You know, when you have 4 options, you're not sure which one's the right one, and you have to guess, it's going to make guessing a lot easier. So, example, I got this word regicide here. I don't know what that word means, but I do know that S-I-D-E, side right here, they usually mean something like kill or murder or destroy. So I at least understand a little bit of what that word is about. As a final note, those of you who speak Portuguese or Spanish, you're actually at an advantage here, because Latin roots are very, very close to Spanish and Portuguese words. In fact, in that example, submarine, you already saw that the word for, ocean in English is already there, mar. English, unfortunately, just kind of borrows from all languages, and, it's kind of a mesh, but we still got Latin in there. But it's easier if you speak Spanish or Portuguese as a first language. Here are some examples of English words that come from Latin words. Animate comes from the Latin word anima. Anima means soul. It's a thing that's in the body that makes it move. So animate, it's something that's moving, and it has anima. Captain, the head of the ship, is from the Latin word captus, which just means the head. So, captain is the head of the ship, comes from the word captus. Legal, here's a really easy one, leges. That is a Latin word for laws. Hostile, well, if someone's hostile to you, they're not your friend, right? No, they are your hostes, your enemy. Voluntary, V-O-L, from the Latin word volo, which is something like I want, I desire, I wish, I choose. And senator, which is my favorite word, just comes from the Latin word for old man. Here's some more examples. You've heard the word supernatural, right? Well, I've divided that up into 2 for you. How about republic or inspect? Supernatural comes from supra natura, which means something like beyond nature, above nature, more than nature. Republic comes from 2 words put together, the res publica, which translates as the public thing. And inspect means inspectare, which means to look closely. Now, let's go through some actual prefixes, and let's see if you can recognize some of these words. Prefix ex or e, what do you think they mean? If I go out the exit, which way am I going? Am I coming in the building or am I leaving the building? If you expel someone from school or class, are they coming into class or are you kicking them out? If someone is excluded from a group, do they get to be part of that group or are they outside of it? If you make an exception to a rule, are you following all the rules or are you doing something outside of those rules? So I bet you can guess what EX or E means when you put it in front of a root word. Here's another root word that's actually maybe you don't recognize. Ject. Ject comes from the Latin word jacare or jacare, which means to throw. So somebody asks you out and you say no and you reject them. It's kind of like you're throwing them back. How about if you eject something? Well, once upon a time there were these things called cassette players, VCRs, DVD players, CD-ROMs. You kind of get what it is. But there used to be this button called the eject button, and it would spit out a disk. And that would go which direction? Inside or outside the disk drive? If you need a flu shot and you're going to get an injection, something is thrown into your body from a needle. How about if you're working in a movie theater and you want to throw something out on the screen? Well, you're going to project an image by throwing something forward. If someone is subject to a king and they've been subjugated to that conquering menace, they are literally thrown under someone else. Subject literally means to throw under. How about these words? Have you ever heard the word frater and soror? Well, some of you have heard of fraternities and sororities. So, what does that mean? Well, brotherhood and sisterhood, literally. So if I told you that the Latin word for mother was mater and the Latin word for father is pater, what do you think maternity or paternity refer to? Now, let's get into some serious actual prefixes that you're probably not going to recognize as intuitively as the examples I've given you before. Here are some prefixes that are opposites. Bene or bone, sometimes just bon, means good, wonderful, happy, great. The opposite is mal or male, and I don't need to tell you what that means. Submarines go under the water. A supermarine flies in the air. Re and de versus pro. Remember, if I project something, it's going forward. If I reject something, it's coming back, or being thrown out, or going back. Ex, if you exit a building, you're going out. If you inject something into your body, it's coming in. Finally, we got contra and intra. If you contradict yourself, it means you are literally speaking against yourself. Intra means with. So if you have an intranet, you're not talking about the internet, which is very big. You're talking about something that's a little bit smaller. Now, here are some more Latin words for you. Vol, will, wish, or want. We've already gone over that. Fic, fect, and fact. These are root words from the Latin word factus, which means to make, to be made, or to do something. Then we have dic, dict, from the Latin word dicere, which is speaking, saying, or talking. Here are some more. Patria or pat comes from the word patria, which just means country. Vit and vita or vit, vitare means life or to live. And then we can't have that without the word for dead or death, mortuus. I wonder what Lord Voldemort's name means now. Think about the Latin prefixes I've just gone over, and you're probably going to be able to look at that word again and figure out what his name might actually mean. Here are some great examples of words that have Latin roots in them, and we'll infer from context together. The Death Eaters had nothing but malevolence towards the Muggles. So, mal, V-O-L, what did V-O-L stand for? Look back if you need to. Mal does not mean good. Western expatriates often experience racism while living in Asia. Well, I'll give you a clue here. I'm not talking about somebody who lives in their own country Where do these people live? The paramedics revitalized the accident victim. The politician appeared to contradict himself. Okay, so what's he doing? Is he speaking with himself? Is he reiterating something correctly? Or is he speaking against himself? She afforded college because of a wealthy benefactor. What did F-A-C-T mean? What is fact? What does factus mean? Bene, bon. What did that mean? So, your assignment is actually to memorize a few of the roots and prefixes that we have on the website. And then, just like before, you're going to read some short paragraphs and figure out what that vocabulary word means. Your last step this time, again, is to use the dictionary. Use context and use root words to help figure them out. Then, just write one sentence with each one of those words. That's all you have to do. Now, let's just think real quick. If a benefactor is somebody who does something great for you, what does a malefactor do? Thanks for using educator.com.